Hey, what's up? It's Rick Dees in the morning. Right now, VinnDog.
Let's get ready to split the alleys and go hard at the yard for Jesus, baby.
Access granted.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's VinnDog in the house, and thank you for dropping by.
Don't let the government be your dad.
You are self-governed.
Sir, yes, sir! Going live from a 35,000-foot view, the Captain America for Jesus himself, VinnDoggRadio.
Well, yikes, it's Monday already, guys. What's happening? I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much. Yes, we are throwing people off of the rooftops of buildings. This is nuts, man. How you guys doing? VinnDog here. Now, please do me a favor right now. If you are on YouTube, like, share, subscribe. If you are on Rumble, please hit the follow switch. If you are on Getter, Gettr, shouts out to the CEO of Getter for always putting me on the front page because he says he wants me to keep it 10,000% real, and I want to do that. And if you are on X, formerly known as Twitter, yes, we're going to use these platforms until they cancel us out. All right. Please do hit the follow switch and repost on Twitter. And yes, we're going to talk about California and how the uniparty system is running the state of California. Sounds familiar? Of course it does. And the guy that's running for governor in 2026, he's not a member of the club, and that's why I invited him on. See, I like to deal with people that are not club members. Let me get my camera kind of fixed here. Sorry, guys, I'm fixing this on the fly. All right, cool. There's the camera fix. All right, so this guy is not a club member, but I'm going to play a little piece of what he's all about. You ready?
I said this once before, but nobody wanted to listen. Maybe this time you will.
We have corrupt politicians. There is no other solution. No other solution. No other solution. No other solution. None. Except for prison. Except for prison. Prison is the solution for corrupt representatives. Nothing less will do. Nothing less will do. That is what you're going to get with me. I'm done playing games. Are you?
Louder than reason.
Daniel Mercuri is here. Man, how you doing, bro?
I'm doing good. Thanks for inviting me on, VinnDog. And just to double check, you can hear me, right?
Yeah, I can hear you. Just a little bit of static. That's all.
Okay, perfect. No, I appreciate you bringing me on. That's great. I was, as we were talking earlier, the Here to Offend You actually came from my wife, who, a lot of people don't know. I was here during I was on the ballot for the California recall. And then, of course, I continued on to the 2022 prime, which I had initially set out to do in the first place. But I realized, the recall had really garnered some legs. And, of course, it would be advantageous for me to throw my hat in that ring. And as I continued on my campaign, I noticed a lot of people kept telling me that I was very offensive, that I was saying things that was hard-hitting. And though they agreed with what I was saying, they felt like I needed to approach them a little bit differently. I should be a little more soft-spoken or maybe not so aggressive or sound so angry or upset. And I thought, aren't you upset? And they said, well, of course I am. And a lot of times I was like, well, then why is it that I'm saying is so offensive? And if it's so true. And when I came home and I was talking to my wife about it, she said, well, maybe that should be your new slogan, right? Instead, it used to be during the recall, starve the government, feed the people. And I changed it to Here to Offend You, not because I want to insult you, but because the truth offends. And a lot of people have a hard time with accepting the truth because once you admit to yourself, you know about the lie, you got to do something about it, right? You're either going to sit on your tail and do nothing, then you can't be one to complain, or you're going to get involved on some level or another to prevent this egregious actions that are being played upon us on a daily basis.
That's right. So I want to set something straight here because a lot of staunch Christians who don't toe the line follow this podcast. And the reason why I brought you on because you don't toe the line. and you're not a member of the boys club of California. So, you know what? Tell us a little bit about what happened when the folks from the California GOP, and I advise people, please do not give your money to Jessica Patterson and the California GOP, because they're just like, I like to call them the Republicrats. That's what I like to call them.
You couldn't be, you're right on, you hit the money, right? I was, during, my campaigns, I had, started putting together a lot of the information, because a lot of the information that I've been putting out there was basically, I wanted to figure out why everything was falling on deaf ears. I really didn't understand how is it that our representatives are able to engage in such egregious behaviors against their own constituents in violation of their oaths of office, pass egregious legislation that's repugnant to the supreme law of the land. I didn't understand why there weren't any investigations, there weren't any indictments. Why isn't anybody going to jail? And I really wanted to get down to the truth. And so I started digging. And the more I dug, the more I started seeing the truth behind everything. And so I started divulging how to wake people up during, my forums and debates and, my speaking engagements. And eventually I just started putting together these PowerPoint presentations that would really help people to engage at their community locally, to start pushing back against their city councils and their mayors and board of supervisors. And so it got to the point where a lot of the GOPs up and down the state of California have been inviting me to put on, this presentation. So I was invited by the Riverside GOP East Caucus, and they loved what I said. That they loved it so much they wanted to bring me back to speak to the entire committee, all three caucuses. And when they brought me there, it was really discombobulated when I got there. Like, half the group didn't even know that I was coming to speak. Others were prepared for me to be there, but they didn't know it was that day. So it was like the right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing, and so they had finally, brought me up, and the microphone wasn't quite working. They didn't even have a backdrop for me to use my PowerPoint. So I had to kind of, help put it all together last minute. And just before I got up on the stage, they had all done this. They swore an oath. So they had new members come in to swear an oath to support and defend and uphold the state constitution and the Constitution of the United States. And so one of the first things I asked to everybody in that group was, all of you who just swore, and I said, any of you ever read the California State Constitution? And they said no. And I said, anybody in this room ever read the California State Constitution? And everybody was shaking their heads no. And there was probably about 70 people in the room. And I said, wait, so you swore an oath to support and defend and uphold the California State Constitution, a doctrine that you've never even read. How do you know you're even in agreement with it? And one of the members who had sworn in walked out in front of me. And then another person who was sworn in to be this new sort of a recruiter to help conservatives fill empty seats, so we can start taking back our positions locally, which is a really smart move to do, was set to go out there and try to bring people in to run as an unopposed candidate, right? And again, I thought that's a very smart plan to do. And I said, what's your criteria? Just out of curiosity, before I start my PowerPoint presentation, that you're gonna recruit the right person if you've never read the California State Constitution. And I said, do you read and continue to read the United States Constitution? And he got up in front of me and he walked out and I didn't even answer the question. And so, as I continued to ask these questions among the entire group, I said, how do you know what to ask if you don't know what to ask? How do you know that your current representatives are engaging in egregious, illegal behaviors if you don't actually know the laws, right? If you don't know the law, there is no law. Right.
Exactly. Yes.
So this was really throwing everybody off, because I was sort of attacking them, but not in an aggressive way. I was just simply asking these questions that they couldn't answer. So I said, well, why don't we continue on with this, my PowerPoint presentation? I cut it down to they were going to give me 40 minutes and they cut it down to 30. And then just before I got on, they gave me 25. And so I got about halfway through when I started talking about Senator Scott Wiener, who is notorious for passing laws that separate the families. He's, passed SB 145 that allows for a 10-year age gap separation with child predation. So if somebody who is, say, 24 has sex with a 14-year-old who's gay, well, anal sex is sodomy. So sodomy is illegal. So you have to register as a sex offender, right? So he didn't actually pass the law to say, listen, if you're gay, well, gay people only have sex, males, anally. So it's not fair that they have to register as a sex offender, whereas a heterosexual, if it's a male who has sex with a 14-year-old and he gets her pregnant, he does not have to register as a sex offender. So he didn't even out the law. What he did was he said, it's not fair that they don't have to. So gay people shouldn't have to register as a sex offender either. Right? Now, if he had gone the other way and he said, no, both sides need to register as a sex offender, I'd have been all for that. But instead, he lowered the punishment so that gay people don't have to register as a sex offender. And then he separated it, of course, to enshrine it that it was a 10-year gap. So if a 21-year-old has sex with an 11-year-old, well, that's okay, provided it doesn't go under 11, right? So in California, they separate the age by, I think it's if you're 11 and under, you're considered a child. If you're 11 and up, you're considered a minor, right? So when I started talking about, his personification of, this allowing to normalize pedophilia, a lot of the members of the GOP in Riverside are part of the LGBTQ plus community. So they whispered to the
you know what? Let's freeze that right there, because there's an organization. They're called the Log Cabin Republicans, and they are part of the Alphabet Mafia. All right. So you have just hit the nail on the head right there.
Yep.
So this is why I really had a hard time dealing with a lot of these people, because I knew exactly where they were coming from. I knew exactly what they're all about. I said, wait a minute. You guys are just the same as the people that you're calling out, but you're just trying to hide it with a different shade over it.
Yep.
And it's good that you called them out about the California state constitution, because I bet you they don't even know it front to back, hand over fist. And the thing of it is, with me right now, and I look out for the audience that lives in California, or the folks that have family members that live in California, because there's been too much toe tapping going on, and it's absolutely sad that people don't do their own research on who they should, find out. Okay, who's for me locally, who's for me on the state level.
Yeah.
If you're gonna pursue getting people to help you get where you need to be, because you see, people don't realize they were originally stabilized as the government, and the people at the top, the upper echelon, they so call themselves today, are supposed to be the servants of the people.
Yes.
And
yes, these are our servants. These are not our leaders. And, when we look at the GOP, a lot of people become automatons because they're waiting for the GOP to tell them who to vote for, rather than doing the research themselves, not realizing that the parties have become repugnant. They've become vile. They've allowed for these what they want to call these new LGBTQ plus people to be conservatives. Well, you can't be a conservative and live a gay lifestyle, because that's a liberalistic lifestyle. It's the antithesis of what conservatism is. So I even stated that too, and of course the entire GOP group that night told me to stop talking. So the chairman came up to me and he said, "I need you to stop talking. I need you to just end this right now." And he tried to take the microphone away from my hand, and I said, "No. I go, you guys are all about voting. Let's vote." And they all just kind of stared, didn't know what to do because I did that. And he was like, "No, we're just going to end right here." So that goes to show you that the group has been heavily infiltrated. And what a lot of people don't know is in California, I actually have it on video where during the 2022 Prime, I was invited to the Pat Nixon Library, and the mayor, who was the host moderator, who was asking all these softball questions to all these candidates here, the gubernatorial candidates, was asking, how much money we all raised. That's because the GOP does not care about the nature, the character of the candidate, or whether or not they're a constitutionalist, and if whether or not they understand the differences between an egregious act and something that's securing the rights of the people. They were more concerned about how much money you can raise, because the GOP, they believe per candidate that's popular, they can get a portion of that money. The problem is they don't give that money out to any of the other Republican candidates. They keep it for themselves. And so, like, if you look at the DNC, as much as I'm against the left, they will shower their candidates with mail outs. They'll feed their campaign with finances. They will do everything they can to hold their seats and finance these candidates, which is technically what the party is supposed to do. And but then, of course, they'll eat their own. But when it comes to the Republican side on the GOP, a lot of them will sit there and they'll keep the money. So if they raise $5, $10, $15 million, where does that money go? Nobody knows. So you got to kind of wonder whose pocket is it going into, right?
Just go to Jessica Patterson's house and dig, and you'll see it under her her living room, probably.
Yeah, for sure. And this is why people say, well, why are you running as a Republican? And the problem is that, our state, you have to choose a party. And that's actually illegal. If you look at the Constitution, you don't have to choose a party. You shouldn't have to, right? It's just whoever you want to vote for is who you should be able to vote for. But they make it law, which is, again, only the consent of the governed can give that authority. But we can take it right back, but people don't know how to do that. And so they try to get you to divide yourself enough through the faction of parties so they can mitigate how many votes come through. So they can't maybe there's no way they're going to get 40 million votes, right? There's 40 million people in California. 10 million are roughly children, kids and teens, unregistered voters. And then the rest are voters, and only about 12 to 15 max ever come out and vote per the gubernatorial election or even the presidential election, right? So where are the other half? Where's the other 15 million that can totally flip this state upside down if they would, get off their tail and actually get involved? And a lot of them come from the church. A lot of people who are at the church don't vote. They don't want to vote. They're disenfranchised to vote. They tell people, well, I'm going to pray about it. That's great. But I always tell people, David still had to pick up a rock, right? He prayed and then he got engaged. You still have to physically and intellectually, you have to involve yourself on some level to ensure that we're not going to have to endure this upside down, craziness that we're seeing right now. But this is where we're at.
Mm-hmm. Well, don't you think a little bit of it too is because, people that did get out there and do it, they got discouraged when they saw how things were turning out. They're like, this is never going to change.
Well, you're totally right. And here's why that happened. And that's because a lot of people didn't quite understand where to actually put their talents. So, I can't tell you, there were thousands of people who got on my case for not standing on the corner of a street holding up a sign asking for honks, or over a bridge pass that dropped down a sign that said vote for somebody or whatever. They didn't understand that the DNC was putting the leftists in these precincts. They were overtaking the California voter registry, right? They were putting people at the county level who were inside the office to mitigate, the counting of the machines. All those kinds of areas is where we should have been, but we didn't put ourselves in those areas. We put ourselves out on the corner of a sign to get some honks and wave a flag and, do all these caravans and stuff. That's great. That brings awareness. I'm all in support of that, but that doesn't do anything. That does not actually ensure that we're going to succeed. Even with this presidential race, that's not enough to sit there and do a Trump caravan. Hey, I'm all for that. But what are you going to do when it comes to the precincts? Because the precincts, a lot of times, when you go into the voter polls, they're not going to sit there and do anything about the fact that somebody voted in your place because your name was on the machine. And I can't tell you how many times during the recall, my name was not on a huge majority of the machines up and down the state. And I called 10 other Republican candidates, and they said the same thing. They were like, yeah, I'm in certain counties and I'm not in others. There are other machines where my name is not on there, and people are calling me going, well, what do I do? How do I vote for you when you're not even on there? I know you're on the ballot, but you're not on the machine.
Yeah, exactly. So it's insane. So let's get to a major issue, because inquiry minds want to know. All right. I did like a survey, and this is a question from the audience. They want to know, what is your stance on abortion? Because more than half of the abortions in the United States of America are in California. Yes. More than half of those abortions that are committed in California are from, black and brown women, and and they make up 3% of the population, of the birthing population, right, of this country. And California has a crazy reputation on this. And it's sad because, to me, honestly, I think there should be a total ban on it.
No, there should, because they enshrined it in the California State Constitution, which now it's egregious within itself, right? So you have under Article 1, Section 1 of the California State Constitution that all people are by nature free and independent, and that you have also the right to life. And when you look at the Constitution, right, it also says, that we are endowed by the Creator with the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? We are of nature and of nature's God, an equal and separate station. So no, that means that when a man and a woman consummate at the moment of conception is life. Well, the right to life means that government doesn't have a right to impinge upon the natural course of gestation. right? And in that process, government can't sit there and say, well, the mother, because she has an autonomy to her body. No, that she's the host, she's the bearer of the natural gestation of the laws of nature and of nature's God. That's why our forefathers put that in the Declaration of Independence. They knew what they were talking about, but a lot of people want to dismiss that. So no, once that gestation happened, once that moment of inception happened, well, now you've got to stop and you've got to make sure that that life has a right to continue on in its gestational process to fruition, to breathe and take breath of its first air, right? That baby has every right, but it requires us. So people say, well, baby's still in the womb. Well, a baby still requires an adult to bring the child again into adulthood so that the child eventually can take care of themselves. An infant can't do that without the help of a parent. And we didn't, government didn't help to engage in procreation. That doesn't work. So government has no say in that responsibility other than what it says in the Declaration of Independence, which is that governments are instituted among men to secure the rights of the people, period. Secure the rights. They don't have any other job. They're not there to grant themselves more authority. They're not there to impinge upon the right to life. They're there to secure the rights. And therefore, that is my job as a governor to ensure that the right to life and the rights of the people are secured, including the child who's in the womb has rights.
Absolutely. Now, let's get to this one. There's a lot of high crime in Los Angeles and other cities around the state of California.
Oh, yeah.
And there's this dumb, stupid law that Gruesome supposedly, has the power to sign this bill. $950 they can steal up to. So he's basically, giving it up for lawlessness. People are let out of jail.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, and then there's sheriffs, a couple of them that I know, that are trying to follow the law of the California state constitution, and they get obliterated by Gruesome. And even some of the, these so-called conservatives are doing the same thing.
Well, again, you have to go back to the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? You can't pursue happiness when businesses are being infringed upon by corruption, and when you raise the stakes of the amount of money that that we would look at as what is criminal. Well, criminals, then they pretty much have given a blank check to continue to do the crime that they're doing, as long as it's at separate different venues, right? So if they rob $900 at one venue and they do it again at another venue, it's just a misdemeanor, right? And they're not going to get prosecuted. So we have a lot of DAs that aren't actually enforcing the law, and that's egregious laws that are illegal, right? That don't harmonize with the supreme law of the land. Wherever the state constitution or statutes are out of alignment with the supreme law of the land, it's repugnant. It's null and void, right? So when you look at Marbury versus Madison or Miranda versus Arizona, Shuttleworth versus the U.S., like when you look at all these court cases, right?
Yeah.
Courts utilize stare decisis, which means to stand by things decided. It means they're not going to reinvent the wheel. If they ruled it once in one scenario, they're going to rule it the same way again. So when you pass something that's repugnant, that impinges upon the right to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, well, now it's out of alignment. Those laws are null and void. But we have a lot of people who are out for self-preservation, like a lot of sheriffs. Our sheriffs here are supposed to be the key factor that can actually tell the governor, go take a flying kite.
Yeah, the power.
They're the oddity to the state constitution, right? Because they're voted in by the people. It can't be removed. So in Los Angeles, they decided to pass this measure. It's called Measure A, that says that the people can vote in the sheriff, but if the board of supervisors feels like they're acting out of alignment, well, then they can vote them out and then they can appoint a new sheriff. Wow. No, you can't, because that's against the state constitution, right? So they're trying. They beta tested it there, and now they've got another bill sitting out there right now called AB 1090. I have a video on it, that they're trying to pass it as a statewide statute that maybe they can enshrine in state constitution, but then that takes it out of alignment, right? You can't do that, but they're doing it anyway because they know that most people don't know their rights. So they're going to keep doing that to see how far they can get, because eventually it's going to lead to communism. And this is exactly where we're heading to right now. And that's why all these criminals are getting out, because it's causing chaos and mayhem, and people don't know up from down. That's what they want. They do not want the people to unify. They don't want them to build bridges, because again, it's easier to control half of 12 million votes than it is to try to control 40 million votes, right? It's too difficult for them to do that, even for the machines. Right. So instead, what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to keep everybody separate. in that sort of mentality. And if they can do that, well, then they're going to let all the criminals out. They're going to try to justify that it's a society's fault that these criminals are acting the way they are, and we should just, help them into some mental institution, or give them another chance. And then what happens? They end up committing more crimes, right? There's no consequence. Well, if there's no consequence, then there is no law, and there's no justification for anything, right? So this is exactly what we've fallen into. And everybody who's in office who has permitted these egregious bills to pass have subjected themselves to indictments, to investigation. They get the indictments, and if you under my administration, we're going to get the imprisonment.
Amen. So let me ask you this. The whole education system has been, rigged and destroyed. Kids should not be in school more than 4 hours. They should be with a family that should, be owning their own business or learning a trade within the family.
Yeah.
So that when they grow up, they could, be very successful. Because I did some digging, and back in the 17 and early 1800s, when kids went to school minimum of a few hours a day, and they spent time with their families afterwards, those kids, according to, the standards of, the brain power, they were a lot smarter than the kids of today.
Oh, you couldn't be, you're right on the money. You're right. It's so truthful, because my kids are homeschooled. So my kids only spend about 3 to 4 hours doing homework, and they're done. And then the rest of the day, they have time to engage in other activities that they enjoy, right? They do piano, they engage in judo, jujitsu, ice skating, and then of course, any kind of play. I also educate my kids on how to swim. I used to be a naval rescue swimmer in the Navy, served 2 tours, 3 operations. And so, there's more time for that. And then of course, at the same time, we've got a little one. So I've got, I've got a 12-year-old and I've got a 9-year-old. And now I have a 2-year-old on my hands, and my 12 and 9-year-old really engage with my 2-year-old in a lot more constructively, not just in play, but constructive play. And my kids are the kind of kids who go up to other kids and introduce themselves, and they introduce their names, they shake their hands, they just strike up a conversation. It's the other kids that are now in school who look at my kids like, I don't know you, why do I want to talk to you? Or they get their head buried in a pad. Like, my children know how to use the pads, they know how to use the computer, but they're limited, right? They get that as a reward at the end of the week if they want to play with that on the weekend, not during the week, right? They're learning also, sign language, teaching them Spanish. So again, my kids are only doing this 4 hours out of the day, and they just, they're so much more in tune. They know how to speak to adults. When I see the kids that are coming out of these regular public schools, half of them can't read. Even my son would engage with other, 10, 11, 12-year-olds, and they don't know how to read, or they're struggling with reading, or they don't understand mathematics, reading comprehension. They're terrible. And my son will come to me and he says, I don't understand. Aren't we in the same grade? I said, well, they're kind of being indoctrinated. They're more worried about what pronoun they are, right? And my son says to me, wait, Dad, if they can be a pronoun, can I be a verb or an adjective?
He's got a comeback.
Yeah, I was like, are you sure, son?
Yeah, and it's so true, man, because, the household that I grew up in, we were very well cultured. I'm glad that I had hands-on teaching from, my mom. She was great at that. She wanted to make sure that we weren't being, stupefied in the education corrupt system. And it was crazy because I remember, how they like to do these tests on kids to see what grade level that they're on and all this other stuff. So I was in the 7th grade, and they're doing this testing, how they try to do it towards the end of the year. And then this teacher comes back with an assessment and tells my parents, well, your son, I can't believe, his reading comprehension, his math skills, and his social skills are just way up there, like college level. They're like, no, it's just up to a real life level. You know what I mean? Because to be honest with you, college is a joke. I
I
spent
totally agree with you. You know, I went to community college after I got out of the military, and I was a triple minor and double major. And, you know, they try to put everything into a box, but it doesn't quite work like that. You know, I got into marketing and digital advertising and you know, everything that I learned out in the real world, I went back to try to get also a marketing degree. And I realized everything was theoretic. It wasn't actually applicable. It didn't apply to the real world. And I would get into arguments with the professor because I was like, well, this isn't how it actually works. I worked for a $2 billion company at the time. And I was like, this isn't how we do it. This isn't how it actually you garner money. These are all theories and, you know, nice to talk about, but that's not actually how it works. This isn't how target markets work. This isn't how you get your information online. It was just this big, you know, again, theories try to put into a box. And it was really about whether or not you could take a test. Now we have a bunch of kids who are being indoctrinated into socialism and Marxism and communism, you know, basically everything stemming from Karl Marx, who again was nothing himself but a degenerate. If you learn anything, and this is what kills me is, you know, people are all enamored with this sort of ideology of equity-based, you know, utopian society. It doesn't work. And, you know, everybody says, well, it's the government's job to provide, you know, ensure equality. And I said, no, their job is to provide equal opportunity. What you do with that is up to you, right? But it's not somebody else's job to sit there and make your life easier. And Karl Marx did everything like that. I mean, he made his wife suffer, his children suffered. He lived off of everybody else's good nature. And though he, you know, even it was the communist party kicked him out because they realized he was too much of a propagandist and that they couldn't get anything going because he was causing division again. So even though he started getting at the pinnacle of his own career of trying to get everyone to think the way he thought, somebody still had to go out there and make a living. Somebody still had to put the work and the time and the effort and the energy in there. And he was just a freeloader. But if people really studied this individual, they'd realize that, you know, again, he was just some sort of philosophical thinker that hated God. He really did. He hated property. He didn't want people to have, you know, a say in their own way of life. He wanted to break up the family. That was one of his things, was to separate family. Well, this is what we're doing in the schools now. We're teaching kids how to hate their own parents. So in California, you know, they pass a law that says, you know, parents can hide, the teachers can hide, you know, their child's gender identity from their parents. Who are you to hide anything from the parents? You're there to teach them a subject matter on, you know, English or biology and chemistry. You're not there to engage in some sort of a socialistic ideology to convince my kids. And who cares what you are? Like, a lot of these teachers are coming out of the closet telling their students that, you know, they're living a gay lifestyle. Who cares?
Check this out, since you brought that up.
Yeah, a lot of these teachers are divulging their personal lives, but that's not your place. You're there to teach them a subject and nothing more, and that's what the state pays. That's where our taxes go to.
Yeah, you know, that was the agenda also of the Rockefellers when it came to the education system too. Look at this one that I pulled up from J.D. Rockefeller.
Yep. Yeah, they were the ones who instituted, the Rockefeller family was the ones who instituted the style of schooling that we have today. And again, it was more about how to be a worker rather than an entrepreneur, right? We always teach our kids how to go out there and, you know, get a good job. We don't teach our kids to go out there and create a business and become an entrepreneur and how to make money, you know, work for money, right? Some people don't want to create a job. Some people want to work for other people. That's okay. That's your choice. But you should know how to be and become an entrepreneur, how to make money, and, you know, how to start your own business if you want to be the boss, and how to create jobs, right? So this is what we don't teach our kids. No. I teach my kids this too. Yeah. Do I still have to work a job? Yeah, but I also own my own job too. I have my own businesses on the side, right? So I'm constantly engaging in different activities. I don't want my children to just be someone to go and work for someone. I want them to feel compelled that or driven towards something that motivates them. But that means they have to think differently. They have to think critically. They have to think openly. They have to educate their minds. That they constantly have to read. I never let my kids just watch TV. I make sure that my kids are reading. And I also want them to not just read from the Bible, but I also want them to read things that intrigue them and interest them and, you know, create adventures for them, right? This is what we have to do with our kids, but we're not doing that. Instead, we're trying to get them to think how many genders there are and that they can live in some sort of, you know, fantasy world that doesn't actually contribute to anything. You know, we got these gender studies. Well, these kids can't do anything with that. There's nothing out there. We've got, you know, jobs for electricians and plumbers and engineers and stuff. And these jobs are dwindling, especially here in California. and yet we're trying to get our kids to be more, intellectual, but that intellectual doesn't apply to anything. We need people that can go out there and know how to farm and cultivate the land and the water. We need people to understand what it means to, to build and to thrive and, and involve themselves in their community to help it grow. We don't do that. Instead, we got all these useless degrees now of these kids coming out with self-entitlement that all want, 6-figure jobs,
without earning it.
Without earning it. They've done nothing to earn it.
Because, it was crazy. When I was in junior high school in the late 80s, around 87, 88, I was so enamored with, broadcasting. So my mentors in radio, my parents took me to the radio station to, just to check it out. And, I met these guys. And the first thing one of my mentors, Sean Hollywood Hamilton, said to me, he says, "Oh man, so you want to be one of the best in the business, huh?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Cool. Take out that garbage." And I was like, "Okay." Because I thought it was the coolest thing. I was taught how to work to earn it. So I told my parents, I told my mom, I said, "Hey mom, he made me take out the garbage." She goes, "Oh, good. That was good, son. That's good. That's the way you got to go and learn." And so, and nowadays, kids be like, "Take out the garbage." I don't do that.
No, I make my children, I make sure that they go around the house. They have their chores. They make their beds. They fold their own clothes. They wash the dishes. They've mow the lawn. They throw out the big trash, on trash day. They clean the pool, right? They all have chores. And it's not like I make them do it by themselves, but we all as a family do it together. We all have our chores to do, but that creates a sense of responsibility. And I reward them, right? When they work hard, I reward them, because that's also life too. If you work hard, or if you're working for an employer, a lot of times the employer will see how hard you're working. They give you a bonus. They give you, more vacation time. They give you latitude, right? They let you choose your own kind of, whatever projects. That's earned. And now we have a society of, self-entitled, little turds who all want safe spaces and participation trophies, because they believe they're entitled to it, and they're not entitled to it. They didn't work for it. They don't know. They don't have thick skin. They don't understand what it means to, earn something. They want to be given it because they just believe that they deserve it. Somebody gave them that mentality, and that's not true, because, somebody at the end of the day still has to work for it, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Go back to reading. This is what helped my reading skills as a teenager.
Yes. Right. I mean, that's the other thing too, is, here in society, one of the biggest things that, we fall and prey to is the removal of God. That the two biggest topics that people don't want to talk about is politics.
Don't say Jesus. Don't say Jesus.
God. Yeah, nobody wants to talk about Jesus. Everybody wants to try to, demonize the Constitution, and not realizing that, even our forefathers, out of the 56, 55 of them were all went to seminary school, and they understood the importance of God, and yet here we are. People think that, we got to remove God because God's so offensive. No, because here's the thing: when the second you remove God, it creates a void. That void has to be filled, and a lot of times that void is going to always be filled with something evil, something incomplete, something unholy, something that doesn't agree with God. Because again, God created all things, and we've been endowed with the blessings upon us and in this nation. And yet here we are squandering it because we're too afraid to engage in discourse with each other for repercussion of somebody not liking the things that we might say or might offend you. Listen, just because somebody offends you doesn't mean that your offense means you're right. It doesn't at all. Everybody who's offended, isn't right. It just means that they were taught, or they're thinking differently. That's probably more wrong than anything else, and not understanding how to have thick skin or engage in tough conversations so that we can share differences of opinion. We don't have that. We're at a stage now where, man, if we don't get this right now, especially with this presidency, I don't know how much longer our nation's going to be able to take this, which is why I also, I hope you don't mind, but I put all this in a book. I wrote a book, with all of everything that I learned. I try to sum it all up. And that's the other thing too. I should tell this too about the GOP Riverside. One of their members called me and he asked me, and he said, "Hey, Daniel, how busy are you?" And I said, "Well, why do you ask?" And he said, "Well, you gave copies of your slides and I don't really understand your slides." And I said, "Well, those are more for my talking points. When I show a slide, that's just for me to kind of talk off the cuff and be natural and, engage in, conversation if anybody has a question." And he goes, "Well, I'd really like to try to make some money off of this." And I said, okay. And he's like, I'd really, I've got a podcast and maybe we could try to educate people. And not that I need your permission, but I was just wondering if you'd be interested. And I said, well, if you don't need my permission, why are you even calling me and asking me? Is because he was going to try to do it anyway.
Oh, he's going to try and steal it. That's what he.
Yeah, he was going to try to steal it. And I said, he goes, where'd you get all this information? I said, it's in the public domain. I just researched. And of course, part of it's my own experience in running for office. I ran for Congress, then the recall and the 2022 prime. And I haven't stopped running since Congress back in 2019. So by the time I'm done running, it'll be approximately 7 years by the time the 2026 is over with. And so I said, my wife even told me, she goes, why don't you just put in a book and summarize it all and help people figure out where they should be at today. And basically I wrote Lucifer's Zenith, Corrupting Nature's God Through Government Deception. You can go on my website. You can go down on the merchandise page. It's right up at the top. You can buy it on Amazon. And if you can't afford it, then send me a DM and I'll send you a free copy. It's not about the money. It's about the information. I'd love to send you a copy too, VinnDog, and really just kind of get people. I let people know how everything that's happening is not by accident. And I show people how the corruption in America actually ties into the Bible and biblical prophecy and what we can do to, fight back as to what's left legally and lawfully and constitutionally. Right. So if I don't win, I am trying to do everything I can to leave something in everybody's hands to try to fight back properly before, God forbid, we engage in war. Because if you've never been to war, and I've served 2 tours, 3 operations, Operation Southern Watch, Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation Iraqi Freedom. You do not want war on your doorfront. You do not want missiles being dropped all over our cities and our counties. You do not want that mayhem. If you've never, it's one thing where, I get these kids who are like, oh yeah, I know what war's like. I played Call of Duty. And
a video game.
I know. And they're literally serious. Their brains are really looking at me like, I understand the depths of war. No, you don't. And if you want to avoid this, then you need to be involved and you need to start first with God. And you need to know your Constitution. And third, you cannot be afraid to engage in discourse with the 2 toughest subjects. And that is politics and of course, God, most importantly.
Yep. Yeah. God has to be over everything. So I'm of the belief that, no matter what happens at the end of our lives, we want to hear those wonderful words, well done, good and faithful servant.
Yes.
Because it's sad that folks don't stand up for their families. It's kind of awful, to be honest with you. So speaking of getting bombs dropped, what's your stance on Israel and the whole thing that's conflicting in the East? Because this is a part of Bible prophecy.
It absolutely is. In fact, I even talk about that in my book, Lucifer's Zenith. One of the things that I tell people is read your Bible, because God says that anybody who comes against Israel, he's going to make Israel an immovable object, and he's going to strike fear into those who directly attacked Israel. And those who do, I can't tell you the horror that he brings to the individuals, even to the soldiers who come and actually try to strike down Israel. This is one of those things, if you are a Bible-believing Christ follower, this is not something that you want our nation to engage in, ever. God tells you not to. And it does say in the Bible that it says all nations come against her. All. He didn't say some. He didn't say a couple or 1 or 2. He said all nations. That would include America on some level or another. And one of the things that I tell people about too is, we talk a lot about the Antichrist, but one of the things that we probably don't pay a whole lot of attention to is the fact that the Antichrist also, confirms the covenant. What's interesting is it doesn't say that the Antichrist actually creates the covenant. It says that he confirms the covenant. That means somebody before him creates this sort of unity, this agreement, this contract that both sides can agree upon. He comes in and confirms that covenant. Well, who created it? Well, there's only one president that has ever bartered 4 historical peace treaties, and that has been President Trump. Now, one of the things that President Trump's deal was his 4th deal that didn't quite get solidified, that not a lot of people know about. And if you go back to try to find the articles, now there's a big old 404 not found, these articles. So I've been doing a lot of research and trying to dig this up so I can at least provide a little bit more foundation to what I'm talking about. But one of the things that he did is he went in with the Israeli prime ministers and the representatives, as well as the Palestinians representatives, and he rolled out a map. Now, if you go online, you can look up some of these pipelines and these areas of conflict that the Israelis have tried to, tried to distribute and tried to, say, listen, will this help you out? Will this stop the killing? Can we agree on this part of land? So finally, Trump actually rolled out a map and he said, okay, point to what you want. So the Palestinians pointed to all the areas that they felt were theirs because nobody had done that. It was always been the Israelis to sort of, do all the negotiation, and the Palestinians have always said, no, no, no. So finally Trump said, okay, well, what do you want? So they pointed to the areas that they wanted, and the Israelis kind of laughed and they said, well, we didn't know that. We'll give it to you. In fact, we'll give you all the land that you are requesting, and we'll even give you a water bank that they were building to cultivate the land so that they can have, better farming, right? Yeah. And they said, and Trump said, great. So now that we're in agreement, is this going to stop all the killing and all the wars?
Absolutely not.
And the Palestinians said, we need to think about it. And he said, well, what does that think about?
That means no.
Yeah, they didn't want it. Well, that's the last deal. That was the last deal that didn't actually get finalized. It was at the tail end of his presidency.
Well, the thing of it is, God says in Joel 3:2 about people who try to divide his land anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Because people are like, oh, Palestine. I'm like, dude, it's Gaza. It was given to the tribe of Dan.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So basically, it's not going to happen. The land's not going to get divided because they're going to try it again. And we know what happens. God's going to throttle people that actually try to put that into play.
Yes. Yeah.
And exactly. I mean, look at this. This is a covenant that God made with Abraham. Genesis 12. He made this covenant.
Yes.
With Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He made this covenant, and it stands today. I mean, if you think about it, when it comes down to all these people coming against Israel, look at Russia starting to come against Israel even more.
Yeah.
Iran, it's all starting to play itself out. And we all know that the United States of America, if it's still around, it's going to be very inconsequential because God is going to be the only one that throttles all of these people that comes against Israel. Israel's not going to be able to defend herself.
Yes, and that's why I tell people, you got to understand because, when you look at the Bible is a Middle Eastern book. It's not a Western book.
Yeah.
So a lot of people think, well, why don't we see America in there? Because it's potential that America may not be part of the end times. There's an indication too when you read in Revelation that when it talks about how, a burning mountain comes out of the sky and hits 1/3 of the earth and destroys 1/3 of the land and everything gets burned up in 1 hour, 1/3. Well, 1/3 of the land mass is the Americas.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of makes you think, well, where's the other 2/3? Well, it's the Middle East. It's where Russia, it's China, it's where all the other lands are at. We're the 1/3. So how does this work? Again, you got to keep studying. This is why it's so important for Christians to involve themselves in politics. It's so important for Christ believers to understand the laws of their land and the state that they're in. I can't tell you again how many people don't understand the Constitution. Yeah, they read it when they were in elementary school. I don't have it memorized. Like, this isn't memorized, but I understand the basis now and how it applies to everything that's going on right now. But if you don't know this and you don't use this applicably and you don't understand the changing of the language that changes the perception, so these people can pass repugnant legislation, then you're going to be duped. And this is what we're falling prey to because we're hoping that we can get somebody in to do the work that won't disrupt our decadence. And everybody's afraid to lose their livelihood or their friendships or be thought of as some sort of right-wing extremist. I got news for you. That's how Christ was thought of.
Mm-hmm. What's funny about that? I think that people are so afraid to even engage in a conversation because I get this from people in public. Oh man, I can't believe you talked to that couple or that lady about Christ and this and that. I'm like, dude, now is the time.
Yes.
Now is the time to start sharing Christ with people because I realized a lot of people have this different perception of God.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh man, we are in a world of hurt because I'm telling you right now, people need to start repenting, man. I'm telling you.
You know, it's interesting you say that too. A lot of people, the last 2 years, sort of frowned upon a lot of the things that I said. But I've actually, over the last probably 4 months now, a lot of those same people who sort of shunned me, mocked me, or sort of dismissed me have actually made apologies to me now, because they didn't think that some of the things I was talking about would ever come true, and now it's coming true. And of course, they bought my book, or they pulled me to the side and bought me lunch, and they said, some of them apologized to me and say, I just got to say sorry. And I'm like, what'd you do? I didn't know, because I was like, well, I dismissed you. And I said, well, I didn't know you dismissed me, but thank you for the apology. But they were basically really sort of floundering around, not sure where to look, what to do, how they can, help the situation, prevent, further degradation of our country, our state. I mean, I can't tell you how many men that are over 40 and 50 are pretty much done with everything going on. I can't tell you how many people have said, I'm ready to pick up arms. I can't do this anymore. There's no more solutions. We've got too much corruption. There are a lot of people that are on the brink of ready to pick up arms. And I don't encourage that, because again, I tell people, if you've never been in war, you don't want to go down this path.
You better pick up the full armor of God first.
Yes, you got to get prayer. You've got to seek fellowship. You really got to commune. And if you're not doing any of that, and you're just reacting on an emotional whim, we're going to go down a horrible path. And the second that people stop talking, the second that people don't pray together, the second that we just sort of just let our emotions run wild, that's when we're going to see blood on the streets. And I have a big fear for that, because again, if you've never been to war, you're not a military service member, you've never been in a war zone, you don't know what you're in for. And right now, could we go quietly into the night? Yeah, that's just as bad, because then you're going to look back and you're going to say, if I only. If I realized, if I just involved myself, if I prayed harder about these things, and was more open, if I voiced up, stood up, and I didn't worry about repercussion, I think we could have stopped this. Well, now is the opportunity, and I see a lot of people that are afraid of what's about to happen. And I'm telling people, we're on the brink. We're not there yet, but we're on a hair's breadth away of losing if we don't get involved. And we've got to first. God tells us that if people call him by his name and they pray to him, he'll heal their land. And I firmly believe that. But I don't see a lot of people, getting on bended knees, and praying to Jesus and saying, "Forgive me my sins. Please heal our land. Help set things right." Right? Like we need to seek Jesus first. I know a lot of people have their hopes and dreams and aspirations in Trump, but Trump again is a tool for God. It's God that we need to be seeking first, not him. And even Trump said, "Hey, he doesn't do anything. It's not him. It's Jesus." He always points up and says, "It's God, it's Jesus." He's not the savior. But a lot of people are looking to him as a savior, and we need to stop doing that.
Yeah, because I see a lot of things on social media, and there was like, oh, this. I'm like, dude, you guys need to like really take a step back and like examine yourselves real quick, because yes, he could possibly win, but if this country doesn't have Jesus, it's done. Yeah. It's done. I don't care who wins, actually.
No, you're right on. Again, you couldn't be more true. Again, but this comes from, I always tell people, everything starts, in my personal opinion, with education. It's a painful process. And if you're not willing to go down that rabbit hole, there's no one else to blame but yourself. If you're not willing to seek first the kingdom and his wisdom, you're never going to find the truth. Because
and just so you know, folks, we're not talking about building the kingdom on earth, because that's not how that happens. All right. God does all.
You got to pray for the Holy Spirit that helps you discern, right from wrong, up and down, left from right, the truth, right? Because Jesus is the truth, the way, the truth, and the life. And we need to seek him. And when we do that, you'll be able to see even more where corrupt government hides and operates when you actually gain that understanding. And when you understand that, then you'll learn how to push back against the corruption properly. And this is what I don't see, because a lot of people are exhausted. People are tired. They're just, exhausted with the gaslighting. The blatant lies and disregard for our rights. What's left? So I understand this, and this is why God tells us in the Bible that at least he cut the time short, no man be saved. But he is going to cut the time short. So that he tells you, fight the good fight, be a watchman on the wall.
Because you know what? To be honest with you, God is above time.
Mm-hmm.
He already wrote the finish line already.
Mm-hmm.
He's just waiting for us to, to do our job so that, we can say, hey, you know what? We did what we could. We fought.
Mm-hmm.
We stood for him. That's all he desires from us. Because I got to tell everybody, his reward is greater than any reward that we will receive here on earth.
Well, and I'm so glad you say that too, because this is something that we need to also look into the candidates, right? I can't tell you how many candidates will get on stage and they'll say, "Oh, I believe in God," and well, which God? Well, the God of the Bible.
Yeah,
well, which God of the Bible? Because there are a lot of deities
I question somebody like that too. I'm like, yeah, who is your God? Is your God those that bird that has two wings? You know what I mean? Two different wings, but they're of the same, the same cloth. You know how that goes,
right? So, and this is exactly why it's so important. And people say, well, separation of church and state. That's not actually in the Constitution.
Nope.
That is not that.
Was a letter.
That exactly. That has nothing to do with anything. No, you want people who are convicted. In fact, our forefathers even wrote that, the Constitution in the United States was for a morally and religious people. Well, what does that tell you? They wanted you to have faith in something greater than yourself, and it wasn't just the universe. They're the creator of the universe, the judge of the universe. They wrote that in the Declaration of Independence when they said that they subject themselves to the judge of the universe. Well, that was a prayer at the end. That's how genius they were. Well, who's the judge of the universe? Jesus. This is why people don't do their research and study, and they think, oh no, they were deists. I was like, maybe there were 7 of them that had that sort of quality, that they were deists, but they still took from the Bible because they knew that the Bible outlined.
That's how this was created.
Yes, it outlined the greatest, cause for what it meant to be free, what a free man was meant to live in. Right. And that's why they took from it. And, I think it was Hamilton who didn't actually agree with everything in the Bible, but he still took from the Bible. So again, what does that tell you? It tells you that they understood that we aren't here by accident, that we just didn't, get created by this, Big Bang theory. And again, that's just the theory. There's no, where did it come from? How did nothing and nothing somehow create the first spark and somehow complex, of uniformity of mankind and life?
Talk about New Age practicing there, man.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's so much harder to believe in the Big Bang than it is to look around and see just how wonderful and how complex the creation of man and this world really is. And to simply say, oh, it was created by a smoke in the wind is ridiculous. I mean, again, you have to be a truly ignorant person to not do research and realize, no, this is all created by, divine intervention. This is a creator's handiwork.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a golden rule here that whenever I have a guest, man, I tell them, I said, hey, you know what? Don't be afraid to mention the name of Jesus on this podcast.
Nah, that's good. I go to
what it says right here, right?
Debates. I should put some of these videos up. I some of my older ones.
Yeah.
And the first thing I tell people is, Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. And if that offends you, go find your safe space, because you're not going to get any of that with me. Right? Everybody needs to know this is who is my foundation, and this is where a lot of my thought process, stems from. So you're not going to be in agreement with everything, but I'm going to tell you right now, I do everything I can to ensure not only my policies align, biblically, but also constitutionally. And and I tell people, listen, don't call me and tell me that my policies suck. That's easy to do. Anybody can be a noise from the peanut gallery. Call me up, right, and tell me, don't get on my case because you don't like something that I wrote. Instead, call me up and tell me how I can improve upon my policies. Right? Get involved. Tell me how you think I can expand on it and make it even better. Right? Because this is our state, our country, and it is the people who are in charge, not the government. Because the government wants you to remove. This is why I tell people to your audience too. Understand this: we don't live in a democracy. We live in a constitutional republic. A democracy puts government first, individuals last. There is no God. In a constitutional republic, it puts God-given endowments to the individual first, government last, and it makes sure that the people's rights are always above government, period. This is why you have to understand the differences of the language. So when we go, well, they're not fighting for democracy. Good. Neither am I. I'm not here running as a state governor to impose upon democracy. I'm going to reinstitute the constitutional republic that has always been in play. You just didn't realize that they used democracy to install business practices and turn our nation into a corporation. That's all illegal.
Yeah, it is.
And
Big time.
corporational status removes God. Why? Because they don't want you to respond or think that you have to adhere to a higher power, because that means that you're going to hold yourself to a greater accountability than what they can present.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I'm going to be respectful of your time, because a lot of people don't know this. Like, if you were to be elected to Congress or the Senate, that was a volunteer position. That was not supposed to be a paying job.
No, not at all. In fact, that's why a lot of people don't realize is that we talk about systemic racism in our country. And I've said this in many of my videos. We don't have systemic racism in our country. We have systemic career politicians who like to pour salt on old wounds, keeping the people divided by the faction of party and the fact that they're out for self-preservation. They're not out for you. They're not there to secure your rights. They're there to ensure that they, live a larger than life lifestyle based off of your hard-earned efforts. So they turn into career politicians who are out for corporatists and lobbyists and union representatives and stuff. They're not out there for you.
Okay,
right?
Daniel, do you see this? Do you see something that I see here? Like, every time somebody goes, "Oh, Ted Cruz and Jim Jordan just roasted blah blah blah," when they gave him the subpoena, oh my gosh, they just slapped Mark Zuckerberg in the mouth with some questions. I'm like, dude, it's a dog and pony show.
That's all it is. You're so right. It's exactly it. This is why people are like, "Oh, I love Dan Crenshaw." I've actually tried to communicate with Dan and told him from one Navy vet to another, you and I need to have it out, because you're a career politician. And career politicians need
He's
to
a left
step
guy.
down. You need to get out. Yeah, sure. This is a dog and pony show. All we ever see are just a Q&A. But there's never any indictments. There's never nobody's ever getting the perp walk. We don't see anybody going to prison. That's because of the fact that they're all part of the same club. Because if they set precedents, then they set precedents for themselves, and that is the last thing that they want, because they have to adhere to their donors. And this is what a lot of people don't know about. This is why it's so important that you don't donate to the GOP. You donate to the actual individual. And then you have to mind and manage and look at every single one of their dollars spent. Because the other thing, too, is a lot of people don't realize is that sometimes a candidate will get, say, I don't know, let's just use a round number. Let's say they get $1 million. If a candidate gets $1 million, and it's grassroots money, that's great, right? Because then they're not getting bought out. But here's the problem, though, is that candidate going to become a perennial candidate? That means a candidate who keeps running and running and running, raising lots of money, and suddenly their lifestyle changes, their suits change, their cars change, their entourage change, and you wonder what's going on here. Well, what they do is that they can take that money, depending on the state, or if it's a federal or state race, they can take that money and they can't keep it. By law, they have to give it back to the donors, or they have to donate it to their party or their party preference, or they have to give it to a nonprofit, one of their favorite nonprofit organizations. And that in there lies the actual loophole, because the nonprofit can be one of their own nonprofits. So they have a nonprofit themselves. They can be seated on as a board member, and then they can pay themselves that money right back. So if they got $500K left over, they'll donate it to their nonprofit or to a nonprofit of one that they have ties with, put themselves on an advisory board member, and pay themselves back, say, $400,000 of that 500, and give the other 100 to the actual nonprofit organization, and they make out with more than almost $500,000. And now you wonder why these people are so rich.
That's the back door.
That's one way on how they do it, and why we get perennial candidates. Like here in California, John Cox has been running for governor and running for office since before I was born, and I'm almost 50 years old. So this man has been running.
Hey, so you and I are both Gen Xers. That's good.
Yes, I am a total Gen Xer. This is why I tell people we are the feral children. We raised ourselves. We have thick skin. In my generation, we had fun when it rained. We went out to the park and we got our muddy cleats and
we drank from the water hose.
Oh yeah, we drank from the water hose, and it was fun. If we got a broken bone, we celebrated that. We couldn't wait to get class and have everybody sign it, and then show it off to all the girls that we liked. Like we didn't care if we lost or won. We cared about how we played that game. That's what we cared about and how intense it was. We always respected the other side, even if they lost, because we knew how much effort it took. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
We don't have that now, right? We're kind of it. We're sort of that last generation that has this heart set. And it's interesting to know too, to your audience. I'm a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu grappler. Been doing it for
Cool. Me
18
too.
years now. Yeah, and it's funny is that, I still put myself through, physical punishment. I still run hills. I put on the sauna suit. I still try to work out 2-3 days out of the week. And then of course I try to grapple 2-3 days out of the week. And I'm, going against, young 20, 22-year-old, 25-year-olds that can bench press a car. But, I push myself through that effort to make sure that I'm still challenging. And a lot of them, are shocked that I'm almost 50 years old. And they're like, how you doing it? And I said, it's because of the generation that I grew up in.
Yeah.
Like, we pushed ourselves hard. Like, we used our bodies as a tool. We learned how to put pain outside of our mind and drive, to get the win. We didn't want second place. We didn't want third place. And if we lost, we picked ourselves back up and we did it again. We didn't ask for participation trophies. We didn't want that. We threw that garbage away. We didn't want some sort of t-shirt that said you were second best. No, we wanted something that said we were the best. We raised the bar on ourselves in a very painful manner. This
if
generation,
we win. If we lose, we lose.
Yeah.
So speaking of jiu-jitsu, I got to give a shout out to my brother's school. He has a Leon Jiu-Jitsu.
Nice.
Yeah. It's out in Orange County. So, yeah. So he taught me a lot of jiu-jitsu because I wrestled in high school. So it was like second nature to me when he was teaching me all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And he actually trained under Hicks and Gracie and their family. So
yeah, it's a very, it's a
that's brutal training. Right? They train hard.
Oh yeah, the old school guys that are still around, like they don't like the kind of like the new dojos, right? The mentality is, a lot of dojos, sort of kind of watered down some of these some of the moves or the trainings and the hardships and stuff, right? Like I'm of the mindset of when I started, 18 years ago, if you had a torn shoulder, you had a popped arm, or like
keep going.
You kept going. You just kind of like, if I remember in a competition, I got my left arm hyperextended in an arm bar. Well, I came back the next day and I just kind of tied my arm to my belt and I had 3 limbs still. And I was like, well, nobody on the street's going to care. So I need to figure out how it's like to grapple with 3 limbs. And once my arm got better, I kind of put it back in. I was actually better, right? Or if I'm cramping up, no one's going to care. I have to fight through the cramp. I'm just keep going until I got to tap, right? This is my mentality too, why I'm still running, because people are like, Daniel, why do you keep running? And I'm like, well, one, there's a lot of beautiful people here in the state of California worth fighting for, but I'm not one to just quit. I've learned what it means to fight through hardship.
Hold on, Daniel. That's one thing about being a Gen Xer. We're not quitters.
No,
we're not one-hitter quitters.
No, we learn from the mistakes or from the pains or from the trials and the tribulations. We learn and say, okay, I'm not going to make that mistake again. And say, okay, I got really close there, so I was onto something. Maybe that's the path that I need to go down, and I'm going to try it even harder this time and put more effort into that, right? It's a constant figuring out and learning and relearning and being a critical thinker in the process of your failures, right?
Did you say, wait, did you say critically think? Oh,
I know.
No.
Right? What is that?
Critically think. Oh my goodness!
And here we have the media constantly telling people, "Don't be a critical thinker." I actually have a news clip of that where they're saying, "Don't be a critical thinker." My jaw, I just about fell out of my seat, and I told my wife, and we watched that clip, and we were like, "Are we kidding?" They're actually telling people, "Listen to them. Don't be a critical thinker.
How to think.
You're too dumb."
Yeah, basically, we'll tell you how to think.
Yes, and that's what they want. They want you to just enjoy your life and, be some sort of automaton and just take everything that they say as gospel truth. When here we are, those of us who are Christ believers, we're told to test the spirit of information, right? Test the Holy Spirit, test everything that comes your way, because you can't just be blind to everything. You need to understand what's being thrown at you. I don't just agree to what everybody tells me. A lot of times I might be in an agreeable mood, but that doesn't mean I agree with what you're saying. I'm going to go back and I'm going to research what you told me. Even in my book, I tell people, don't take my word for it. Test the spirit of information out. Test all things before you believe in anything. That's written in my book.
Hey, Apostle Paul talks about that.
You have to. If we don't have accountability, because that's accountability. Accountability means, listen, I may not have all my facts correct, but am I on the right track? If I am, then help me continue to go down that path. That's where the people come into play. Right, that's where we come in as a community, as citizens of this great nation. Right, we are the sovereigns of the land. We need to help our representatives. We should be smarter than the representatives as a collective too, and helping ensuring that they know what they're doing. And if they don't, we need to call them out on it and or remove them. And the process needs to be a little easier than what it is today. Now it's almost impossible to remove somebody from a position, let alone get an indictment of any kind, despite how egregious, unless they committed murder or they're in the middle of sex trafficking, like we're never going to get them in prison.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't tell you how many people in the CRA and the GOP have prevented people from interviewing me. They've actually told people, don't interview Daniel. And these people who've been told this have called me and said, we're told not to interview you. Can you tell us why so-and-so or so many individuals don't like you? No, I have no clue. The only thing that I hear is that Daniel's very extreme. He wants to arrest everybody. He wants to take down the whole system. Well, you mean the system
if you're guilty of breaking the law, yes.
Right? You know what's breaking the law? If you pass egregious legislation that is repugnant, that is against your oath of office.
Treason.
You are not permitted to even throw that on the floor for a debate. That's egregious. You just violated your oath. You have to be removed, period.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's actually subject. Those people are subject under our state codes here, under section 1369, to imprisonment up to 2, 3, 4, or 5 years in the state penitentiary.
You know why they don't want you to talk? Because some of their hands are dirty too.
Oh, are you kidding me? All of their hands are dirty. This is why I say we need a clean house in the state California legislative body, our judicial branch, our executors. I mean, we got a bunch of sheriffs too that are, a lot of sheriffs that we have here, unfortunately too, are also California bar members. Let me just tell everybody too, don't think that just because somebody is a lawyer, therefore the Constitution. They're not. If you think about it, just look at the word bar. Bar stands for British Accredited Registry. British. So if you say you're part of the American Bar, you're saying you're part of the American British Accredited Registry Association. So you're serving the crown, not the Constitution. If you're part of the California Bar,
wait. So after England got a whipping, they're still a part of it.
They are, because of the 13th Amendment. So our 13th Amendment that we have right now actually used to be the 14th Amendment, and it was shifted down. I actually explain about this in my book so that people understand that we were put under the new 14th Amendment, which is a dubious jurisdiction that's contrasting to the supreme law of the land, more so what we call the Bill of Rights. And when you understand that contrasting jurisdiction, you'll understand that our current government, that's a corporation, is actually acting egregiously and, of course, illegally in its stead. So you've become a civilian rather than a sovereign, and you're operating under business law, which is UCC codes, right? So now
wait. See, now you're getting into a territory that I like to go into, because I tell people your social security number is your employee ID number. They make money off of that.
Yes, that's absolutely true. And that's another topic that I break down into what the Social Security actually is, what's on your birth certificate. There's hidden numbers and there's hidden words in there that I broke down that I had to put into an anagram. I realized it was an anagram for a phrase. And a lot of people don't understand that, when you look up the definition under the United States codes, it stipulates, I think it's under section 3005, it stipulates that we are the United States means business corporation, right? So so now we're in a corporation. Well, how'd that happen, right? Again, because of the contract clause or the exploitation of the contract clause. When you look at Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution, it stipulates that no states can come up with the law to prevent the obligation or the obligation of a contract. That means the right to contract is not limited. So if it's not limited, it can be completely unconstitutional, so long as it falls under the business clause, right? So if they can do that, then they can remove natural rights. And natural rights puts you under civil rights. So again, civil rights are immunity and privileges given out by the government, not God. And they believe that you can waive your sovereignty by signing those contracts. So when you sign your birth certificate, your social security, your driver's license, you're putting yourself under the contract clause, and you're not understanding what it means to remove yourself out of that, which is a whole other topic and stuff. But
we'll save that for another episode.
Yeah, but can you do that? You absolutely can, but you have to understand the laws. And this is why you have to understand the court system. This is why a lot of people don't want me running for governor, because I know all this. And because of the fact that I peppered this in a lot of my speeches and my debates and forums and stuff, because I take the time to constantly study my Constitution. I don't have it memorized, but I have enough to know when something is presented to me, that sounds like communism. Well, no, that's illegal, and you can't do that because that's not securing the rights. That's actually favoring the government. Your representatives are to ensure that government remains impotent. and that you live in prosperity, always having to say over government. And that means that you have to remove yourself under the thumb of the government by removing your civilian status and putting yourself back under the sovereignty status and under the right United States Constitution for America, not of America. The for and of are completely different. So when you read law, I encourage people, to read the late great Justice Scalia's books. He's got a number of them out there, and I'm still reading a lot of his stuff that's really educated me. He was one of the last constitutionalist Supreme Court judges that I believe was actually killed. I think he was assassinated. There was a lot of mystery around his death, but once he was removed, that was it. And that was under the Obama administration. I don't find, again, I don't believe in coincidences.
Yeah.
All
right.
So again, education is key.
Yeah. So yeah, it's amazing to me that people don't understand that when they are voting, the ones that do vote, and they're like, well, this guy, I'm like, if you look at everything that they're saying on both sides of the aisle, you're voting for the same total enslavement.
Yes.
It's all enslavement. And it's funny because one of my good buddies, Wretched Watchman, he has a channel on YouTube, and he talks about this because, folks, he goes, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just showing you the facts.
Yeah, that's
on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah, they are.
He goes, I don't go out and tell people not to vote. He goes, I'm just telling you to beware of what's being put in front of you, because a lot of people don't realize and I hate that old saying, well, I just want to vote for the lesser of the two evils. No, don't vote for evil, period.
Yeah, this is why it's so important to vote for the nature, the character of the candidate, and for you to understand the laws. Because if you know that the candidate is speaking from a level of education where they know how we got into this mess in the first place, if they understand the 1913 Act of the Federal Reserve Act, under the banking system, if they understand that the 16th Amendment wasn't properly ratified, if you read any of Bill Benson's work, the man actually went state to state and proved, that the Constitution, improperly ratified the 16th Amendment without the proper signatures. And if you look at all the states and what he brought in when they wrote back to amend it, you'll realize it wasn't proper and that it's illegal. And even to this day, you can still use it against them if you understand this. When you know that you're going to put somebody in like that in office, then they know how to fight against the corruption. And that's why the GOP and the DNC and a lot of the people in the state here at California has actually thwarted my efforts a lot of times in getting in front of the forums or getting on, some of the mainstream media's talk shows, because there's a lot of people from my own party that don't want me saying these things because they're afraid that the system might come crashing down. And I keep thinking to myself, you mean the system that has robbed you, has stolen from you, has pillaged you, has taken from your prosperity, your children's future? You want that system to stay up? Then don't vote for.
You want to continue being plundered, basically.
Yeah, because they're afraid. That's it. That's just it. They are afraid to lose what remaining decadence that they have. They'd rather kick the can down the road rather than dealing with it right now. And this is what I see time and time again. I can't tell you, a lot of the people I speak to in some of these GOPs are baby boomers. The boomers are afraid that their retirements are going to go.
And it's not true.
It's not.
Actually, they're going to get more of it back.
That's exactly what I tell people. I said, if the government stops impinging upon your taxes, right? I'll tell you right now, the way the 16th Amendment is illegal in a lot of sense, if you just understood this, is that they can only take an excise. But a lot of people don't know what the hell that is. And when you sit there and you look at the payroll tax, that's illegal. Well, if you don't sign the contract, you don't have to pay that, and neither does the employer. You sign it because they made you think it was lawful, but it's not lawful if you understand that. And it was already, again, the First Continental Congress already agreed upon it. Abraham Lincoln had already agreed upon it. It's already been ruled in a number of cases that's still standing to this day.
And Abraham Lincoln wasn't a perfect guy.
You and I work for each other. If I go work for you and you pay me $500, government has no right to that money. In fact, they've already stipulated that money is inviolable. That means they can't touch it. And if you save it, the so said what is inviolable also remains to the person who earned it. Tax can't do it unless I give it to them or unless I sign the contract. If I sign the contract, well, now they have a right to it. And what contract do you sign? Your W-2, your 1099s, and so on.
And I don't sign any of those.
You need somebody. This is why I tell people I'm ready to take it all down in a proper way that's legal, lawful, and constitutional, that puts prosperity back into the people's hands, and the people have better control over the government at a local level. This is how it's supposed to be.
Yep, and you got to make sure you have the proper team of people surrounding you too.
Constantly. This is the part of the thing that I don't understand with Trump, that he keeps surrounding himself with some of these degenerates that have done nothing but turn their backs on him.
Oh man, I'll talk to you more about that off the air.
Oh yeah.
I'll talk to you more about that off the air, brother.
Right? This is where we're at. This is where
it's like a motorcycle in a motor drone, bro. It's crazy. Yeah, we'll talk more about that off the air, because I want to be respectful of your time. I want you to get to your family too, my friend.
Oh, thank you. No, I appreciate that.
Yeah,
no,
we'll talk for a couple minutes off the air. So let everybody know where they can find you. As your website is actually in the show notes.
Yes. So that's the biggest place. If you go to my website at danielforcalgovernor.com, on there you'll find all of my social medias. The ones that I primarily focus on are my Instagram, my Facebook,
Instascan,
my X account. I do have a Telegram, but I don't really use it that often, at least not yet, because again, more people are focused on the presidential race than they are about the next 2026 gubernatorial race, and that's okay. I understand that. And and then my Rumble page. I don't use YouTube anymore. YouTube has taken down way too many of my videos. I do have a TikTok, but I don't use it anymore. I got up to like 50,000 followers during the recall, and it got taken down. Then it got all the way up to 40, it got taken down, 30,000, it got all the way taken down. So I just stopped using TikTok. I only use it as a way to, people send me videos. They send me sources and stuff that they want me to look at. So but those are my top ones. I use my Facebook. Excuse me. I use my Facebook more as a, I guess more of a, I'm trying to build an honest group of people that not necessarily political, but I do tie it to everything that is political. I use my Rumble for all of my own personal, my own show, because I have a show called the Defy the Lie podcast, where I kind of do my own sort of spiel, and then I use my X as more of a statement where I comment on some things. So again, I'm rebuilding everything very slowly and organically. So I have a following and not a mess of a following. But at the end of the day, you can always send me a message. I answer all my emails. I answer all my DMs, and I'm very accessible. And just give me a little time.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely, man. Thank you so much for coming on. I try to keep YouTube open as a portal to promote guys like you. So that's why.
Thank you. No, and I this was really great. I appreciate you reaching out and bringing me on. I'm always appreciative to being able to speak to new audiences, and and I always tell people, feel free to ask me the tough questions. I have an answer for everything.
And and as you know, I don't throw softballers.
No, and that's what I like. I like honest conversation. I like honest questions. I like honest digs. I'm not a fan of people trying to shotgun me, but I've had that too, and that's okay. Yeah, I get it. We're all gonna kind of have to endure the ups and downs when you throw yourself out there as a candidate. So, but VinnDog, I really appreciate you. I appreciate your audience, and
yes, sir.
I'd love to do this again for sure.
Absolutely. God bless you, brother. And ladies and gentlemen, please do me a favor, share this podcast with those that you desire to hear or watch this. And also, if you felt it led on your heart by the Lord to support the podcast, it is in the show description. Thanks, Caterlin. It's in the show description, and you can do that. And it really does help keep the podcast going. This ministry is mainly to get people to Jesus, but we also tell the truth 10,000%. Love one another, take care of each other, and don't forget, tomorrow, the pregame show before the Wretched Watchman show. God bless.